Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's your boy Prince, and this is the Redshirt Report. We break down college football, what's going on, and there's a lot of drama going on at LSU. Not as a big of a game day slate, although there is some Big 12 and SEC matchups. Not a whole lot going on in the Big 10 this week, but let's dive right in. So, as I'm sure you guys have heard, Brian Kelly has been fired. He is no longer the coach of LSU. And in a shocking move, or maybe not shocking, shocking to me, the athletic director, Scott Woodard, was also released too. Yeah, there's a lot of turmoil and dismay going on over at LSU. Um, yeah, it's pretty dramatic over there. They still somehow believe that they're going to make the playoffs, and they believe that they could salvage the year. That's what the administration believes, that's what the team believes, and that's what the fans want from the team. It's not a realistic expectation. I mean, they're already a three-loss team with all those losses coming from the SEC. So the likelihood of them actually making the playoffs is next to none. I mean, zero. I'd give them a 0% chance of even being considered for the playoffs, even if they win out, just because of the fact that all their losses are already in conference losses. So regardless of what happens for their year, it's pretty much over for them. Things can't get much better. So yeah, not a good time to be an LSU fan. Now Brian Kelly's on the market. I don't know where his next job will be or if he'll get another job. He didn't do too good at LSU. I mean, they always had the players and the recruits, but they couldn't win against top competition. And when you're an elite program, a historic program like LSU, where the expectation is to win and to get a title, you have to deliver, which Brian Kelly did it. Also, the putting on a fake accent too. I don't think he really helped himself out either, because the fans are booing him and wanted him gone. It's never a good sign when the fans want you out and they're actively booing for you to get off the field and to be fired, and they're calling for your job. Um, like, I don't know if it was putting on the fake accent over the years or if it wasn't winning against top competition, but he's gone. The athletic director's gone. So expect a lot of new faces that are going to be coming into LSU and to try to reshape and change the directory of this program. Also, the latest news, James Franklin, the once fired former Penn State coach, is now interested and is in heavy discussions with Virginia Tech to be their next coach. I don't know if or how this happened or if it's even remotely possible that they were able to do it, but James Franklin is in talks with Virginia Tech, which would be interesting. It would definitely shake up the ACC, an already weak conference as it is, and it definitely would be a new pace for James Franklin to go from Big Ten to ACC. I'm surprised he chose, or he's even talking to Virginia Tech. You think he'd go to a bigger program than Virginia Tech, but that's what's going on. So we'll see where discussions take Franklin, if he ends up signing with that job or he signs up with somewhere else. But they seem to be the front runners right now. I think that's just something worth noting. And you got to wonder who's next. The coaching carousel has been, I don't even think we've ever seen such an active coaching carousel or just coaches getting fired one after the other. Yeah, it's caused a lot of chaos, a lot of mayhem, and you have to wonder who's next from Power Four schools. I think you got Mike Norvell, very possibly could be, well, like he could be out of the job next. Florida State's been on a losing streak, haven't really done good compared to how they played week one. He could be out. You got, I know, Dave Arnanda out of Baylor. There's been some talks about him because I know Baylor hasn't really performed or lived up to the expectations from the beginning of the season. And I think another one that's worth mentioning is Brett Venables. Now, Venables was one of the guys that was, at the beginning of the year, we're saying could have been fired. All that talk kind of quieted down, and we haven't heard much talk out of that since Oklahoma's been ranked, and they've played pretty well, even though they've had some flaws. They've played well this year. But if they lose to Tennessee and they don't make the playoffs again this year, I think they could very well have the discussion, should Brent Venables have his job as the OU head coach, or should he find another job? Again, that's no one is saying Brett Venables, but I do think it's something to consider, especially for another program with high expectations like LSU. So that's definitely something worth mentioning. Now, let's get into the upset of the week. I chose them last week, and they almost pulled it off. Almost. Or 2 weeks ago, sorry. I chose them 2 weeks ago, and they could not pull it off. So this week, I'm taking South Carolina to get the win against Ole Miss. Now, you're probably wondering why. And my answer to that is if you watched the Alabama game, you'll understand why they should deserve to win. Like why they deserve to win, like the grit that they played with. Now, it was a loss for them, but it was a heartbreaking loss and one that they could have avoided had they played better in that last quarter. Alabama came alive, so I give credit to them for getting the win. But South Carolina was dominant for 3 quarters of that game. They had control most of the time in most of that game. Now, even though they lost, they were clicking on all cylinders. Dylan Stewart is a hell of a player. He can do it all for your team. He's an absolute monster who, if you don't defend, he will create problems for your team. He's an absolute beast. He could very well be a top 5 pick in the draft this year. That wouldn't be shocking to me, or I wouldn't be surprised if other people have him as a top 5 prospect because he is playing at that level. So I think that's something to worth monitoring. Also, if you're Ole Miss, they've got a pretty easy schedule, relatively speaking, for the rest of the year. So they could afford a loss and go 10-2 and still very well make the playoffs. They did get the win against Oklahoma. They've had some good ranked wins, especially conference wins. So even if they were to drop one to South Carolina, it wouldn't be the end of the world for them because they could still easily win out the rest of their year and be a top seed or possibly be in contention for the SEC championship. And I think if you're South Carolina, you got to use that momentum, right? You got it. That has to carry over and it has to result in a win. This whole year has been a down year for South Carolina. I don't think anyone expected them to play like this or to perform at the level in which they have performed at. But all things considered, I like Lenore Sellers. I like Dylan Stewart. They've got a good group of guys who are gritty, who want the win. And I think Shane Beamer is going to coach this team. They're going to head right on to Oxford, Mississippi, and they're going to get the win. Give me South Carolina for the upset of the week. Now, Vanderbilt against Texas. This is going to be a good game because I think even though Vanderbilt has one loss, Texas is slightly favored in this matchup. They are the slight favorites. Um, and I think a lot of people still consider Vanderbilt not a joke, but they don't consider them to be an elite team. And they kind of like a Cinderella story where you think it's cute in the moment, but you don't actually consider them a legitimate threat. And that's kind of how they've been viewed all year, even though they've been playing at an elite level. Pavia is playing Heisman worthy football game in and game out. Texas, I think that while they have found ways to win, I just don't think that they have enough to win against Vanderbilt. You look at their schedule the past 2 weeks, overtime win against Mississippi State, in which they weren't in control for most of that game. Like, again, that was even in the fourth quarter, beginning of the fourth, all momentum was towards Mississippi State. Mississippi State blew that game for themselves, which is the reason why Texas was able to come back, take the game into overtime, and eventually win it. And then the week before that, went into overtime against the terrible, terrible Kentucky team. After having back-to-back overtime wins, barely managing to escape, can they do it again against a team like Vanderbilt that is gritty, that is physical and aggressive, that is going to take you to the trenches? And the answer is, I don't think they can. I don't think they can, especially with the possibility with Arch Manning not playing The backup quarterback, I'm blanking on his name, but I know that he's a transfer from Troy, who I believe is a senior. Um, the offense just hasn't been clicking. I don't think that this team could sustain another win or play another 4 quarters plus overtime and possibly be able to win. I think they're exhausted. I think their level of play is going to catch up with them. And I think this is a game in which Vandy knocks Texas out of the playoffs. And I think Diego Pavia. Now, in that Missouri game, he did have a turnover. But overall this year, he has been good with keeping the ball, not turning over, not making dumb plays or plays that lead turnovers or put them in bad situations. He has been good in keeping the ball, and he's been Superman for that team. He leads the team in rushing. He obviously leads the team in passing. Uh, he's not really being talked about for Heisman. There's been some mention or some rumor of it, which to me I don't understand because I don't think we've seen a player who has the same amount of swagger and talent like Pavia. You got to go back to the Johnny Manziel days because I think that's his perfect player match. Like if you look at Johnny Manziel's career and what he did at A&M, compared that to what Diego Pavia has done for Vanderbilt, you get the same guy, essentially the same player, so to speak. So I think that Texas is going to have a hard time. While their defense has played good, I just don't think that they have the offensive production to be able to outplay Pavia and this Vanderbilt team. They're going to get creative. They're going to pound you with the ball, right? They're going to run it 30 times, and they're going to be physical. And I don't think that Texas can take another game where they have to try to come back from the trenches or try to dig their way back into a game. It's hard for any team to do that, but especially when you're without your starting quarterback, when your O line has looked inconsistent throughout the year, where you're having to always rely on the defense. I don't really see any way or situation in which Texas is able to get the win at home. So for those reasons, give me Vanderbilt all the way, baby. Also, if Vanderbilt's able to get a legitimate win against Texas and they're able to outright win, I think it helped firmly put them in the college football playoff conversation because they're a one-loss team right now. But if they were to lose, let's say they do lose, there is a situation in a world in which a 10-2 Vanderbilt team might not make the playoffs just because they're considered less than another team like a 3-loss SEC team or a 3-loss Big Ten team. So they could be considered less than, even if they go 10-2 and still are in the top 12 at the end of the year. So I think for Vanderbilt, it's a must win for them in the sense that they need to continue to legitimize their reputation and show to the commissioner, right, and to the playoff committee why they should be in the playoffs and go out and once again prove don't underestimate Vanderbilt football. This is their year. Give me Vanderbilt. They're going to get the win. I know they can. I feel it. I'm rooting for them, and hopefully they can go out and play the way they have the past couple of weeks. Next up on the list, Oklahoma, nighttime game, prime time at Tennessee. Let me just say, Tennessee, they do have the night mode jerseys. Dark mode will be at Neyland Stadium, which those jerseys are some of the hardest jerseys. Those are some of the best jerseys in college football, but I don't think it'll be enough for Tennessee to get a win against Oklahoma. Now, for both of these teams, it's a must-win matchup because for either team, if you end the year with 3 losses on your record, there's a very slim chance, and I mean little to no chance of you actually making the playoffs or even being considered, especially for Tennessee. A brutal loss to Alabama. They just were never in that game. The close loss to Georgia, right? They can't afford another loss, especially within the conference. Same goes for Oklahoma. You got the loss to Ole Miss last week where they weren't really in it. I mean, they had sparks where they kind of came to life, but that entire game was pretty much dominated and controlled by Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. And then that loss to Texas was just an ugly loss too. And we haven't seen Mateer return to his form before the injury. Pre-hand injury, Mateer was easily the Heisman favorite. Since he's come back from the injury, he hasn't really been the same. He's not completing all his throws. He's had more turnovers, hasn't been as efficient on third down and in the red zone. Just overall, this entire offense has kind of been dragged down and it just really hasn't played to the expectation that they did during the first 2, 3 weeks. But with all that in mind, I still trust this team to be able to go get a win against a Tennessee defense that is absolutely broken. Now, Josh Heupel in press conference said that the defense has been fixed, and I'm using quotes, you know, quotation marks, because what does that mean? I don't know. Has he made a change to the secondary? Has he, I don't know, given a talk or done something to make a change? Um, has he? We don't know. And we'll see that at Neyland Stadium Saturday night. However, even if the defense has been fixed, I think you're asking for a lot to carry for Joey Aguilar to have to carry all that weight on his shoulders. He's played great. He's been amazing for the Vols, much better than Nico Yamavella, right? But I don't know. I don't trust that the defense has been fixed, right? This is a secondary that has given up 266 yards per game, as well as 16 passing touchdowns, right? Now, while their front seven is good and they have been able to get sacks and generate pressure, I don't think that secondary, you can't hide that. You can't hide a flaw. You can try to fix it, but you can't hide what's already bad, what's already broken, right? And that secondary, I think they need to go just if you lose the game, you lose the game, and they need to reassess what went wrong with their secondary and try to bring in some recruits or some transfers who could help build that up for next year. Because I don't know, I don't trust Heupel and his claim that the defense has been fixed. And I think this is a good game for Mateer to come back. Just go out there, right? You haven't been playing good. Ignore the noise. Go into a tough stadium, arguably one of the hardest places to play at, aka Neyland Stadium. Go out there and deliver a win for the OU fans to help cement yourselves in the talk for a playoff spot or to try to get a playoff bid. And I think by doing that, by getting that road win, you're very well looking at an Oklahoma team that makes the playoffs, even if they're a 12 seed, right? As long as they don't lose another game after this, Oklahoma's in. That's a safe bet. It's safe to say that they'll make the playoffs if they win this game. For Tennessee, if they win, it's like, okay, this is a good win. Maybe they could try to get back to the playoffs, but they're just not at that level. They haven't really had the explosive plays or the players that, other than Aguilar, right, that have stood out or have that X factor ability to truly take over a game. They don't have that. So for those reasons, I think Oklahoma's going to march down there into Neyland Stadium and handle business. They're going to upset the Tennessee fans. They're going to kick them out of the playoffs, and Oklahoma is going to make a statement. Brett Venables, he needs a win, right? He needs a win because, like I said earlier, while he hasn't been mentioned as one of the coaches in the hot seat, losing against a ranked opponent and not getting yourselves in the playoffs again, right, is not where you want to be. And Oklahoma fans have high expectations. So you have to deliver if you're Brett Venables. Josh Heupel's not going anywhere. He's not getting fired if he loses this game. He has another year, right, to go and assess and add to the roster and make additions and change what he needs to change. He's not getting fired. He's not in the hot seat. Now, he could go to another job. His name has been mentioned to like Penn State or LSU or Florida, right? But Heupel isn't getting fired from Tennessee. Brett Venables could very well be fired from Oklahoma if he doesn't deliver. So that's a storyline to keep in the back of your head as you're watching this game and watching it unfold tomorrow night. So I think with that extra pressure, I expect Venables. Mateer's going to come back. I think this could be the game where he proves why he's the man at Oklahoma. I think that they're going to go out and win. It will be a close game, but kind of like that Alabama matchup where Alabama kind of just ran away with it, especially in that second half. I think we could very well see a similar situation. Give me Oklahoma. I just think that they have the best odds to win this. Next up on the list, I was going through, and this is the only Big Ten matchup that I think is worth mentioning. I try to give one from each league, or try to do that just so that way it's a balanced show and it's not overwhelmingly SEC or Big Ten or Big 12 or ACC. I try to keep that balance. But this week, there's just not a whole lot going on in the Big Ten landscape in terms of playoff implications or really shaking things up in the Big Ten standings, except for number 23, USC, going against Nebraska. And I think that Nebraska is going to win this game. They do have the home field advantage, and those fans can get crazy and get rowdy and really get turned up and kind of take over and disrupt an away team's play calls, right? That focus. Um, I think it's worth noting, and it's something to consider is there a situation in which either of these teams, USC or Nebraska, make the playoffs, even if they win this game? Because Nebraska and USC are not making the Big 12 championship. I mean, the Big 10, excuse me. There's no world or situation in which they make the Big 10 championship because you still have Indiana, Ohio State, right? Those two teams are probably going to be in the Big 10 championship competing for that first round bye, right? And then Oregon will make it, assuming that they don't do something crazy and drop their next games. Oregon is going to be in the playoffs. So you've already got three Big Ten teams there. And out of a 12-team playoff picture, right, are you going to put in a fourth Big Ten team? And the answer is, I don't think so. Even if the winner of this game, whether it be Nebraska or USC, wins the remainder of their games, wins out, I don't think either one of these teams is going to be seriously considered by the committee as a playoff team. No disrespect to either one of those teams, right? I like Jaden Maiava. I like Dylan Raiola. The Cornhuskers have a good program. They have something, especially with Matt Rule staying there. I don't know if you guys saw, but he signed an extension, and I think it increased his buyout too. So he's staying for now in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln Riley, I think there's no reports of him getting fired. I don't think he will be fired. He's still going to be at USC. And I like Jaden Maiava a lot. He's a good quarterback, dual threat, can use his legs to extend, make plays, right? He's a good quarterback. But there's no situation, there's no world, there's no realm in which if you have a 10-2 Nebraska or the 10-2 USC be considered when you already have three Big Ten teams that are going to make the playoffs, right? I just don't see it possible. I don't think it's realistic to say that. And again, I don't mean disrespect. I just think we have to be realistic. But I do think that Nebraska will be able to get the win. While Maiava has been good, I do like what Raiola is doing in Nebraska. He's had a great year, right? I think especially to that run game, they've kind of come alive with Emmett Johnson the past 2 weeks. And that's going to be the key is feeding Emmett Johnson, feeding him, making sure he gets his carries. He's able to have an explosive game, 100-plus yard game, 2-3 touchdowns. That's the kind of performance for Nebraska in order for them to win this game. You're going to have to rely on Emmett Johnson, which he's a great player, arguably their best offensive weapon for the Cornhuskers. And I don't think that USC will be able to stop that run, right? And then especially if you're looking at Emmett Johnson, right, and you're trying to contain him and stop him, that creates plays and that creates opportunities for Raiola, in the play action or to be able to make those deep throws or try to go downfield with the ball or try to win in the passing game because you have attention on Emmett Johnson. And this USC defense, they haven't been bad by any means. They've been solid all around, all across the board. Solid run defense, solid pass defense, but they don't really have a number one player defensively that you can name off the top of your head or like an X factor, so to speak. They simply are lacking that X factor that gives them that extra chance to win this game. And when you look at Nebraska and having years of not being good, not being relevant, to now we're ranked, falling out of the ranks, they're going to come back into the ranks if they win this week. I just think it's a lot of drama and a lot of emotion, but I think the Cornhuskers are embracing it and they are ready for it. And under the primetime lights, with the home field advantage, I think you have to take Nebraska to get the win. It'll come down to the stretch. It will be a close game, kind of like that Northwestern game for the Cornhuskers, but they will be able to get the job done. Give me Nebraska. I'm going to be rooting for them. I do like the program and Matt Rule and what they have going on there. And I just think that they'll be able to outperform Jaden Mayava and this USC offense. And we got a Big 12 matchup to wrap up the episode. We have Cincinnati going into Utah. Now, this has serious Big 12 implications. If Utah loses this game, their chance of making the playoffs and making the Big 12 championship falls to less than 1%. Less than 1. They get a win tomorrow night. I think their odds are about, like, I'm not remembering what their odds are, but they have a decent chance of winning the Big 12 and making the playoffs. With all that in mind, though, one team needs it, which is which is Utah, and one team wants it, Cincinnati. And I think that Sorsby has just been phenomenal this year. I think that he's played better than Devon Dampier. Now, Devon Dampier, I know he was having an injury, but as of right now, there's no injury designation, meaning he probably will be the starter and will play tomorrow. But even if when he was fully healthy and playing, I trust Sorsby more. I think that they're going to go into Utah and they're going to be able to take care of business. I think Cincinnati, even though they don't need the game as much, because Cincinnati could very well lose this game and still be in contention for the Big 12 championship, right? I do think that they want it more than Utah does. No disrespect to Utah, Kyle Whittingham, they have a good program. Dampier's a good quarterback, but I think Sorsby's just the better dual threat quarterback. He can run it. He's a big guy, 6'3", 220, about 220. He is a big guy to take down. So whether you're trying to stop him with the run or he's got a good arm too. He's made some nice downfield throws. Overall, I think you need to trust the Cincinnati team. Now, I know everyone's saying that the weather's going to be bad in Utah and that home field atmosphere and the fact that Utah needs it more, which I do understand and I do respect that. But I don't think we should count out the Cincinnati team because they've really come as a shock, I think, in the entire Big 12. No one was expecting them to be, at this point in the season, to be contending for the Big 12. Yet they have been. After that loss to Nebraska back in week 1 or whatever week it was, they've been on a tear. They've been playing at next level. High quality, good offense, solid defense. I simply trust them better. I think when it comes down to who can make more gritty plays offensively and defensively, right? Like in the trenches, I trust Cincinnati more. I think that they have that X factor in Sorsby, and I do think he'll be able to get that upset against the Utah Utes and be able to take over and win that game. So give me Utah, give me Cincinnati, go in there, get the win, upset Utah season, disrupt their season, send them out and packing to try again next year. Sorsby, while he's not in the Heisman or he's not a Heisman favorite, he could very well have it go off for a big game and try to put himself in that conversation. I believe that he's first or tied for first with Fernando Mendoza in passing touchdowns. This guy is it. Like, this is an NFL player. Like, he has that potential. And you could see that if you watch his games. It will be a late game. If he can prevail through the tough weather and the tough crowd of Utah fans, they will be able to win this game. Alrighty, guys, that wraps up the episode. Thank you for tuning in for the Redshirt Report. Do me a favor, tap in and subscribe. Your brain wants the smoke.